Hi everyone. It is Hi everyone. It is me, Sailor Jupiter Lita here, and today I'm going to talk about something that you might think that I would not talk about, but it needs to be talked about. All right. And I've talked about this many times, but I mean, what the hell? It's probably something that needs to be talked about. So, in a Sailor Moon followership, when it comes to the English work, there's always going to be folks out there that always seem to, hate and skit, and shame and guilt and slight and scathe Dic and Cloverway's work. And the things that they always bitch about, or at least they bitch about now, is the first they bitch about the word playing, I guess you call it. The ones who did the speaking for them. They say, "Oh, I didn't like the way they talked. That's not the way I thought the cells would speak like." Well, first off, I don't know what they wanted the cells to speak like, but I guess Settled English and Wanted Reich English wasn't the way they wanted them to speak like. I don't know. So they talk about that. And you think at first they're just, seeking small things to bitch about. But no, next they start bitching about, names being shifted, which I don't understand that, but that's what they bitch about. They think that the Dawn Landish name should have been kept. They didn't like it that the Latin and French and I guess Greek, Latin and French and Hellenic and Hebrew and Farsi borrowed names were, that they were given to the cells instead of their Dawnlandish borrowed names, which I don't understand why they made a big deal of it, but they did, you know. And then they made a big deal about strikes and hit names being shifted, and that happened between Dic and Cloverway. They would shift the strike names, and they, you know, they would. But why make a big deal of it? I don't know. And if you think it's done, they started bitching about stead names being shifted. But then again, this is just small stuff for them to bitch about. Then, then what they did was then they didn't then they talked to then they started bitching about how the unstraight cells were shown in the show. They bitched about how old Zoisite had to become a woman in the Dic offshoot, but was a man in every other offshoot. And and then they also, bitched about how Sarah Uranus and Sailor Neptune, Mara Michelle, onlooking, had to become near kin, which they were lovers in every other offshoot. You know, and with that, I mean, come on. You think these folks would know why it had to be done. You know, and it's not like it was a bad thing or something that had to be done. But back then, and we said this many times, Dic and Cloverway worked in a time span or a lifetime at the time where it was wrong, or if it wasn't seen as wrong, it was something that someone could scathe you and shame you and guilt you and slight you for if you had any selves that were unstraight, and if it was on a kids show. So Dic did not want to get in that bind, so they had to shift Zoisite to a woman. And Cloverway which by the time it was 20-0 when they were working on the Sailor Moon stuff, but it was still that not long ago from that lifetime, they also had to make a shift so they wouldn't be put in that bind. It's not like today where you can do that and there's more, more folks are more trusting and understanding of it and open-minded to it. And that doesn't mean to say there still aren't folks out there that aren't, but there's probably more folks out there that are more trusting and understanding of it and open-minded to it than they were back then. So it was the time they were in. Um, but beyond that, everything else they bitch about it, it's just sad. Then they bitch about the songs. I'm sure they probably bitched about the songs too. The background songs, the songs that were in some of the followings. And then they also bitched about the Sailor Says. About they can't understand why the Sailor Says were put in there. Well, keep in mind, during it, there was a oversight that the FCC had to uphold, or law, I guess, at the time, or whatever oversight, that said that every farseer folk work out there had to have some learning films. But if you were like TLC or the Learning or Discovery, then you were already set and you didn't have to worry. But if you weren't, then you had to seek some way to fall underneath that oversight. And yes, Sunbro did it. Yes, Ease the Sunbro did it. Dic did it. Hanna-Barbera had to do it. And I know a lot of folks like to scathe that kind of thing. But some of the stuff they did talk about were some of the stuff that you could learn something from. So I don't know why I'm making a big deal out of Sailor Fez though. Anyway, and you would think that if you think the Cloverway one would get any on look with them, no, they bitched about they didn't like how that one was handled either. Where did this hate come from? Well, I can't really call it hate. I call it unlike, because they unlike it. But at the end of the day, I don't know where that came from. And before I end this film, that was always putting us in some kind of bind that we unfairly should have not been in. Since we offshoot, in the early days, there were folks that thought, oh, well, I like the Toei offshoot. But once the Viz one came out, that was the one that got all the onlook. But there still are some folks out there who still, like to say you're not a true Sailor Moon follower if you like this, offshoot. Now, for all these folks out, if you like the Dic and Cloverway take on Sailor Moon, what these folks forget is that if it wasn't for the Dic or Cloverway work, they wouldn't have had the Toei work to even look at. They wouldn't have had the Viz work, because a lot of these folks that are bitching about it now and love the Toei work and love the Viz work were ones that were either watching the Dic or Cloverway work and then years later ended up looking it up on a reckoner at their Learn or at the book house or when they got their first reckoner at their house, and then learned about the Toei one and loved that one. Some of them probably didn't understand the speech at all and just read what was being written. And when the Viz one came out, that was the one everybody said they should have gotten back in the day. I don't really know all this hate about the Sailor Moon English offshoot that was done by Dic and Cloverway came from. I don't know. Anyway, it's all the time for me. If you like this film, follow us over here at Sailor Moon for Life. Or watch the last film we made yesterday over here with Sailor Mars bitching about YouTube mateship. I'm Sailor Jupiter Lita, and I hope you like this film. Bye.